BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And the cold winds of autumn are starting to blow here in West Virginia. We have just passed the fall equinox, and we are now getting ready for the season. And we are going to be doing something a little bit lighter today because we've been talking about a lot of murder cases recently. We just started getting into the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings, as well as talking about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and as always, the Zodiac Killer, mentioning some of that material here on this channel. If you're listening to these things live as they come out, we got some new things coming out on the murder of Sherry Jo Bates that will be out later this week, as well as another thing on just an overall more comprehensive thing about the Zodiac Killer. But if you've clicked on this link here and you're subscribed to Black Box Online Radio, first and foremost, you are awesome. But if you'd still like to follow the Zodiac Killer stuff today, I would highly recommend you check out the Zodcast. That's right, Zodcast, Zodcast, hosted by Drew Beeson. Yes, some great Zodiac Killer discussions. I've been following one episode every day, just keeping up with that one. And also, there is a new series of videos out from Rick Hansen. He has a new channel. Rick Hansen has some videos on the Zodiac Killer as well. And without further ado, let's get on to today's topic. And as I said, we are going to be doing something a little bit lighter. And we've done some uploads about this in the past here on this channel, Black Box Online Radio, talking about how people see the future, what will come. And we've mentioned the group Marvelous Work and a Wonder, the Humanity Party, the Real Illuminati. They have 3 different names. And I have their book here, Human Reality. And they have a vision for the future. And part of their vision is dealing with a world, a solar system even. Our solar system here, we got like all the planets, right? They're dealing with that type of world where we're going to be expanding into different dimensions. And I mean that literally and figuratively, but also colonizing other planets, settling on other planets within the solar system. And I would just like to read something here from the book Human Reality, because I think that this is a very bold statement, because they're talking about how once we get to a point where we can learn more about other planets like Mars and Venus, people are going to have the choice about which planet do they want to live on the most. The way that we have choice about which state in the United States of America do we want to live in, or which country on the planet Earth do we want to live in. Let's read something here from their book. Different planets for rearing children. In advanced societies, there are 2 main classifications of parenting groups. One group consists entirely of women who have determined for themselves that rearing children from infancy to adulthood brings them the most joy to their existence. The other group is made up of male and females. To best describe these 2 types of parental groups, it is necessary to envision them as they existed in our past, when we first were created, and how those of us who choose to be responsible for children will exist as advanced parents in the future. The planet Mercury. Mercury, the planet for male-female couples. Mercury, using the names of our known planets only as examples, will become a planet upon which will live those humans who desire to live together as a couple, one male and one female. Mercury is going to become the planet of partnership. The next planet, of course, is Venus. Venus will be a planet for females. Venus will become the planet which will live only women who desire to be mothers and do not cater to the needs of anyone, including men, except their children. So that's the planet. That's what Venus will be. Earth will be the planet for the servants. Earth, our Earth, will eventually accommodate those people who will be the working servants of everyone else. Earth will become the servants' quarters, for want of a better term, for all those humans who have the knowledge and the power, and most importantly, the desire to serve the needs of other beings. These advanced humans in servitude will have no gender, because they will not choose not to be involved in the creation of life. Okay, I almost wish I hadn't read that last sentence. The planets of each solar system serve individual needs. And first and foremost, I should say that I was reading this along, and then I was just like, okay, keep going, keep going. I mean, follow what you're saying. Mercury is going to be the planet for the couples, like the males and the females. Venus is going to be exclusively for women, Earth is going to be for servants, and I mean, I can almost exclude that genderless sentence. But then I thought that they were going to be like, okay, Mars is going to be exclusively for men, but it kind of just ends right there, and they go off onto a different subject. But they lay out a little bit of the framework. In the future, can you imagine that? Having a world where, I mean, when I say world, I mean a solar system where each planet is going to be dealing with its own type of culture, but divided up along the lines of not only gender, but also choice. And by choice, I mean like the free decision to live on that planet, and divided up by the choices associated with how you raise children and what type of environment should children be in. As you heard on Mercury, it would be men and women would be raising children together. And on Venus, I guess these women are going to Mercury to get pregnant or something, or they might be going to Mars to get pregnant, although that isn't written here in the book. I really thought that was going to be. Maybe we'll get to that in a future section, but because I really wanted to know, like, okay, I think humans just want to explore the unknown, and they're going to be like, what's going to be happening on Jupiter, then Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I mean, there's even a thing here in this book talking about how there are 9 planets for more or less, for all intents and purposes. There are 9 planets in their discussions, and I mean, we can, do something about Pluto later on. I mean, sometimes you just read something, and you feel like you have to talk about it because it gets you thinking in a different way. And with this group, I mentioned, has 3 different sides. They put out this book called Human Reality, which you can get online for free. You can also purchase a hard copy on Amazon.com, but I, of course, have the free copy that you can get to download. They have 3 different sides. They have this name called the Humanity Party. That's their political side. MWAW, it stands for Marvelous Work and a Wonder. It's a YouTube channel. It's their spiritual side. And then there's this thing called the Real Illuminati, which is, it's almost the things that are going on behind the scenes, but they have 3 different names. And you can find their work online in 3 different ways. And they make a lot of claims about this. I once heard their spokesperson, Christopher Nemelka, in an interview when he was talking to somebody about a similar subject, and he mentioned this in a very bold way when he said that we have a solar system. And when you think of people like Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, Buddha, Zartush, like these famous spiritual icons of the past, they are the leaders of our solar system. And I thought that he was going to be going down this pathway, and perhaps to a certain extent he is, but I thought that it was going to say something like, one day we're going to colonize the moon and eventually Mars, and then it was going to expand in that type of direction. But no, I actually think that he was talking about how he can communicate with people in other solar systems, and like he can actually talk to other people in different dimensions and such. And he has his own communication method. They did some weird stuff there. That's why I was saying I really wish I hadn't read that whole thing about Earth is going to be inhabited by the servants who have no gender, because I almost think that is so wacky that it ruins the message that they're trying to share. But if you just think about that, what is your response to that? In the future, we're going to have colonies on these different planets, and you're going to have people going to choose, okay, I want to live in this planet. Like, people are going to become expats, not in a different country, but an expat on a different planet. And then eventually they're going to migrate toward a different planet. If someone is born and raised on Mars, and then they decide that they can't put up with this Martian lifestyle, they want to move over to Venus. Hey, that's it. I'm done with men. I want to live on Venus with all the women, and I'm raising my children on Venus. One of the things that has been talked about recently in the news is that it's possible that we will more likely than not encounter life on Venus rather than Mars first. In short, I believe that some of the headlines were saying that everybody's looking at Mars to try and find life when we could be looking to Venus. Now, what I can say about that is I will believe it when we see it. I'll wait for the documentation, the proof, then we'll be like, all right, there's life on Venus. One of the interesting things about Venus, though, is that it's rarely talked about, but Venus has 2 continents, Aphrodite and Ishtar. And, I mean, I didn't think twice about it once, but then somebody told me the reason why it has 2 continents on it, Aphrodite and Ishtar, is because those are other names for Venus. Aphrodite was the Greek name, and Ishtar was the Arabic name. I never even bothered to Google that to see if that was even true, but that's something that I was told once. And to support that, when you hear the word continent, you often only think about the continents we have on Earth, like Asia, Africa, North America, but I guess why not? I mean, all these planets are going to have their own types of geographical outlayings, and we'll be learning all about that as the century continues to go onward. We're in the roaring 20s right now at the time of this recording. This is 2020, best year ever, right? And what we can also expect is that Mars is going to be colonized rather fast. Stephen Hawking made the claim that within 500 years, Mars will not only have colonies, Mars will not only have cities, there will even be a type of Martian cuisine, and that, like, it's going to be a very well developed society within 500 years. And a lot of people are talking about developments on Mars, and we see this in science fiction movies have been predicting this for ages. Not only talking about Matt Damon and The Martian, we also have John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars. I mean, people have been talking about this for countless decades that we're going to have colonies on Mars. We did an upload on this channel back in 2018, I want to say, or maybe it was around the new year of 2019, thereabouts, when we were talking about humans living on the moon. That's just what it's called here on the channel. I'm actually hoping to re-record that because it was done in the original black box format. I would like to do that in the future because some of the claims that we mentioned is that the group, the Lyndon LaRouche movement, put out a very bold statement when they were saying that not only do we need people living on the moon, I repeat, we need people living on the moon. The moon needs to become an intersolar system docking bay. Like, that needs to be a lunar base that we can use to access other parts of the solar system. You heard what this group here who wrote the book Human Reality is talking about with Venus and Mercury, and we need to have people going to these types of locations. Now, you might be wondering, the way that that thing was written that we just read out, is that just satire? Is that just meant to be something metaphorical that these people are just, maybe the planet is in your heart, maybe Mercury are just the people who are living man and woman together, and Venus is just the people who only want to be raised, like maybe single mothers or something who don't want a man in their lives, and then Mars can be the single fathers who don't want women in their lives. MGTOW Mars, it has a good name for it, a nice ring to it, I meant to say. But I really don't think that that's what they were talking about based on the way that this book is structured. Overall, the kind of thesis to human reality as a book is just saying that they're all about simulation theory, and we've talked about that in some previous uploads here on the channel. We have one other discussion on the book Human Reality here on this channel, which was more of an introductory thing, as well as we talked about the dream of mortal life and just some other things about Marvelous Work and a Wonder and their claims. But they're all about simulation theory, but not simply saying that, we live in a simulation. If we live in a simulation, then who's behind it? Well, there are these advanced beings, which are genderless. I have heard them say that before. That's why I really thought it clouded this discussion, because I think if we just take away the simulation theory, take away these genderless beings that actually exist and created us as avatars, then we can actually ask this: how are we going to colonize the solar system? Are we going to have something like that, what we just said, where people are going to be on the moon, and the moon is going to be like a transportation center? Because some of the reasons for this is that the moon has reached as far as I understand, the moon has reached complete evolution. It will not advance into any other phase because nothing grows on the moon. I mean, you might have things like water being formed when different things collide with it, and then like ice can melt and such, but somebody also told me that as well, that the moon is a completely evolved celestial entity, for lack of a better term. So then that would be an excellent place to use as a transportation center, a docking bay, where they would be able to build imagine something that is just like a very, very large station that is placed on the moon, and that is going to be an intermediary zone to access other parts of the solar system. In some of the other material that I mentioned, as I said, we've done some uploads about this in the past, but I wrote this one science fiction story once because I didn't know what else to do with it. I mean, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a mechanical engineer, and I don't work for NASA, but I was talking all about living on the planet Uranus. I guess we used to say Uranus. Some people said Uranus, but I think most people say Uranus now, or that's how we're supposed to say it, but living on Uranus, however you would like to say the word, or Eurectum, as they said on Futurama, as the new name for it. But I had this plan to live on Uranus, where Uranus has a much different structure than Neptune. Like Neptune had that dark spot, which was a colossal storm. Neptune had these winds that were going at 1,200 miles per hour, and it seemed like Uranus was a little bit more calm. So in this science fiction story that I was talking about, you had these as we said, like kind of floating communities that are in the upper atmosphere of Uranus. And it really just simply went that first we had Earth, and then we colonized Mars, and then we would colonize Uranus. We wouldn't even really be bothering too much with Jupiter and Saturn because of, once again, the storms, the wind conditions. However, though, a lot of people are looking at oh, Europa. That was the moon off of Jupiter. I almost said Titan, the moon off of Saturn, but no, Europa off of Jupiter might be. It's the moon off of Jupiter that could be a potential source of water in the universe. Titan off of Saturn does have an ocean, but I think the ocean on Titan is purely methane. And I'm just going off of old memories like that, so I shouldn't really ramble on too much about things like science. But yeah, like there were these types of floating communities that would be in the upper atmosphere of Uranus, and it would be all like inter-travel between different housing pods and communal pods, lots of space pod travel. And before you think that those are just the ramblings of some guy who wrote a short story about science fiction, I really expect that perhaps there will be a little bit more of that in the future, or just the entire concept of human beings living on space stations. And we've talked a lot about exoplanets in the news. I mean, you'll hear things about how they have things like Galaxy 581d, where they think that there could be water on other planets, perhaps even in a different galaxy, or maybe even within our own galaxy, but many, many, many light years away. So one of the ways to go about that would not even be anything to do with what Marvelous Work and Wonder is talking about here in the Human Reality book, but they would have to have a group of people would be living on a spaceship for 70 years, and an entire generation would be born. Like you're going to spend the rest of your life. I mean, if you're 30 years old, you would go on this and you would know that you would most likely die on the spaceship, but you would be bringing a new generation with you. Your children would be born and they would arrive on this new planet, wherever it may be. And then their children would grow up on the new planet. A generation would be born on the spaceship. But to talk more about the material that is put forward in Marvelous Work and a Wonders book, when they want to say that we're going to have different planets in our solar system and you would choose which one you would want to go to. I mean, what would Jupiter be? Jupiter would have to be like the people that would want to climb Mount Everest or something, or the people who want to swim with the sharks, and of course the storm chasers. I mean, people who are going to be lusting after adventure and want to go in through some rough terrain. They can navigate through the storms of Jupiter and such. You could do the same thing on Neptune, I suppose. And the introverts are just going to hide off on Pluto, perhaps, and then they're only going to come out once a year or something like that. We're going to have some real intense interplanetary travel. It almost sounds like they're talking about teleportation pads at this point. If you're going to be like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to go to Mars and get pregnant, and then I'm going to go back to Venus, and I'm going to have the baby, and I'm never going to see another man ever again. Or maybe they're just going to have a sperm bank that is built up there, artificial insemination on Venus. I mean, Venus and Mercury, let's not kid ourselves. These things are extremely hot. These planets are extremely hot. And with Venus, the big problem is, as I understand it, the temperature rises so much because it's kind of like the greenhouse effect on steroids. They have all these volcanoes, and it creates this cloud that just traps in all of the heat. Once again, I don't mean to ramble too much about the science. And even if everything is not 100%, it's like relatively in the ballpark. And first and foremost, Mercury and Venus are very hot temperatures, and they haven't really laid out any plans to talk about this. And can I ask you that question one more time? Do you think that that's all satire or figurative language, metaphorical representations? And based on the way that the book is structured, which is talking all about how we're going to plan the future, it's called Human Reality. It's talking a lot about how human beings live in a particular way, and we're going to have to expand our ways. And I really just liked that statement about how, as we said, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, these people are the leaders of our solar system, because once we expand to the moon and Mars and maybe Venus, then we're also just going to be using these leaders as a type of control point. Like, that's really what they mean, like, by leaders, like control points. They keep the solar system in order. But once again, I think there are a few things that also cloud that types of judgment. And the final thing I would just like to say is I like different ideas, even if I think that they're extremely far out. I like talking about them. And maybe once a year or something, we'll do something like this where we can talk about possible future colonies on different planets. First and foremost, I do think that Stephen Hawking is most likely correct. We probably will have a lot of things going on Mars. People are looking to Venus, though. So before we think that this human reality book is absolutely crazy about we have Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and all humans are going to be spread out throughout the solar system, I mean, the discussions are happening. And also bear in mind that we could include the moon into this. Introverts won't have to go to Pluto. Introverts can find their place on the moon. And think about some of the other planets that we didn't mention. We talked about Mercury, Venus, and Earth. Once again, Earth is the place for the servants. One final challenge question. What would you think about some of the names of the other planets? We got like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. What would you do with that? What kind of person do you think would want to live either on those planets or in the upper atmosphere of the gas giants and such? Okay, well, that's all for me now. Once again, a little bit rambling into scientific areas that I am nowhere able to say things in an expert way. So I don't mean to do too much of that, but it's talking about things that I think are somewhat related to general knowledge, and I'm not really trying to decipher any type of chemical formulas of the structure of Neptune or anything like that, but just talking about things in a much more general way. So hopefully some of that is still fair game. Please drop anything you have to say in the comment section below. And once again, you can check out Rick Hansen's YouTube channel, as well as the Zodcast, hosted by Drew Beeson, available on Drew Beeson's channel, if you'd like to keep up with some true crime today. That is all for me now. Everybody, see you on Instagram. Until next time.